Hi everyone! Looking how to work with GraphQL? Let's start. Here we are. To work with our GraphQL, we'll be using a couple of services. We'll be using Apollo service, we'll be using our GraphQL, we'll be using .env, so we'll be able to work with env file, and we'll be using MongoDB. But let's start one by one. Firstly, what do we have and what should we do? I have here some pre-done CLI comments, and let's start with our first CLI comment. And we'll start our Node.js. We'll create this one. So for making that, we're making terminal. You can see that. And we should just, first we should initialize our Node.js with init -y. We can just create our template of our package.json, and then we'll just install the services that we should have. This Apollo server, .env, GraphQL, and Mongoose. Mongoose, this is library to work with our MongoDB. When you will work every time with your MongoDB, you will have different libraries in different programming languages, and for Node.js, we have Mongoose. Like MongoDB, Mongoose, something similar in here in that. Yeah, that's what we should do. We just hitting return or enter, and you can see that we have our default package.json. You can check it here. Oh, sorry, not here. Here, this is our default one. We can check our package log with everything that was installed, and we don't should have to worry about that, or do we have right now, and etc. We just created our basic project, so we have all the libraries we need to work with. Everything's good. Let's go further. Let's work with our MongoDB. Why do you need that? First, you should to store somewhere your GraphQL, and in general, GraphQL is just how you will show your information. If you're thinking that GraphQL is a specific database, that's not. If you're thinking that this specific library or framework, not. It's just a type of how you can take your response. An idea here is just to be sure that you're taking the result you wanted to have, or that you can make instantly a couple of requests, and we'll discover that a little bit later. Let's just go to our start Mongo, and to start that, we'll create our Mongo demo with basic database that we'll call GraphQL demo. And why we're using that with Docker, this will be the easiest way to show you how we can work with our Mongo, how we can run that. We're just taking this comment. All you need to do is just to install Docker application. It can be done with simple web page. You're going to that one, and there you can just find that you can install that as a desktop application, and that will be enough. After that, everything will be run locally on your machine. Everything will be good. We're copying that, pasting that here, enter, and then you can see ID of our process that has been run. And if we go for our application, Docker desktop, as you can see here, you can see here's our Mongo demo. It is running. Everything is going smoothly, and you don't need to do anything more. It just takes from online repository MongoDB, the 6th version, and it instantly runs on your local. I'm so happy that we have Docker right now, and we can start our projects much more faster. After that, you done all of the presets that you need to work with your application. The next thing that you should do is understand how our project is created. Everything that we need is just in one folder src. Also, we have .env file, and I'll show you why do we have that. If we open our src, we have here 3 files and 1 folder. We should just be sure that we have server.js, and if we'll click on that, that's what we see. And before we'll understand how does it work, let's just start our server. The first thing that we'll do here, you can rewrite this code. You can check it out if it works with your one. But let's just start our Apollo server. For that, we're going back to CLI. The third command will just start from our root terminal. So for example, I'm here in a coding folder, and there I have src folder. So I will run with Node.js in a src folder server.js file. That's everything that I need to do. So I'm just copying that, pasting that here. I can close my file, can close CLI folder, and let's hit return or enter whenever you are working on. So we can see here that it just tells us that it was injected, deprecation warning, that some module was deprecated. Okay, it's not a big deal at all. So we see server ready at port localhost 400. And if we'll go here, that's what we see. I can rerun that, and everything works. So let's focus on that, on how does our server works. So we can close that right now. Just hit hide panel. And let's discover how does our application is working. So first, let's go to our server. How does it work? So firstly, we are taking configurations. How do we take that? When we have been installing .env library, why do we need that? So with this simple command, we instantly have in our variable process, we have object env, and inside that, we have a couple of variables, MongoDB URI, port, 2 of them, and why 2 of them? Because if we'll go to our env file, we'll see that we have MongoDB URL and port that will run our host. So why do we need MongoDB URL? So this one will help us to understand where is our database. And it is here in Docker. And you can see the default port is 27017 that we have run here. It is MongoDB. So when we're running that from the Docker, it is creating that. Firstly, we're connecting to MongoDB. So firstly, we're telling that it will be MongoDB. Then it is in our localhost. So you can check it here. Localhost 27017. That means that we're running on localhost on the port on this port our database. And that's that we're taking that. And GraphQL demo, this is our exactly database that we're using. That's where we'll store information for working with GraphQL. So that's crucial here. You just need to understand this is our localhost that runs MongoDB. It's our database. And MongoDB before that, it tells us that we'll connect to the specific server of MongoDB, and it has some ACE protocols, ACE moments. You just need to write that. And that's the template that you can use to work in here. Then we have port 400. Why we have port here? Mostly we have port in our env files. When you will run that on a specific server, some ports can be taken already. You should just need to change these numbers. And you can discover if it will work on your local host and your server. Sometimes your local computer has some active process on the specific port that on the server doesn't, and vice versa. Just remember that ports mostly are written in env files. And by the help of env files, you cannot share these specific moments, and you can just share your src folder to your repository, and everyone or the people who you want to they will see your application and you won't leak any important information. That's important here. And when we go here, I don't have any important information here, just MongoDB URL, and we have also our port. With taking that, we have a function, a synchronous function, that will start here. And what it will do? Firstly, the most important, it is looking to connect to our application. If it will fail, our application will also fail. This is the crucial moment here. We're connecting to our database, to this one. After that was done, we're running our Apollo server. What is Apollo server? Apollo server, this is specifically a library to working with your server, and it is based on Express. Here, what you can do. It is created to work with your GraphQL and MongoDB. It is specifically created to that. It will make instantly easy to you to use that, because if you will use not Apollo server, you should just create it manually. You should create manually how you will request this data, how you will type this data. You should also import some additional libraries. Remember, when you will use your GraphQL, one of the most main variant how you will send and receive your information, based your application on Apollo server. That will instantly help you in working with your application. Believe me. And when we just create our new object based on type defense and our resolvers that we'll discover a little bit later, we just runs our server. Server listen. We cannot use this port here, but it will use default one, but better every time just to write it from your env, how I'm showing it here. That's what we done. Then we're just taking our URL, and did you remember that message? Server ready at the specific localhost. That's easy just to understand every time that your server is running, and you can instantly know where is it. Just making that will make a little bit easier for you to understand how you can work with your application. That's how our server is running. Everything is done by Apollo server and Mongoose right now. Mongoose is taking database, Apollo is running server based on our GraphQL. And that's the moment that we are here. Firstly, this application that you see, this query your server, all of these UI things, it is done with Apollo server automatically. You don't need to do anything here. But moment here, what is type defs and what is resolvers? Here we go. Let's go with our Schema. What is Schema? Schema here is just to GraphQL to understand what is our GraphQL view. Every time when you're working with GraphQL, you're making types. Why are you doing that? That's one of the features of GraphQL. That will help you to understand that everything is right. For example, which IDs do you have? Can it be null or not? What is title? It is string. Can it be string or not? And etc. Also, you can discover which mutations do you have. Mutations, this is actions that you can do with your specific table, with your specific information. You can update data, add them, delete, remove, or remove specific value and make that specific action. That's what you can do. And mostly, you'll use query and mutation. What is query and mutation? To easily tell you, query, this is how we're getting our information. We're querying that. Mutation, this is how we're changing that. So we can add, we can edit, we can delete, we can add only one specific value, doesn't matter. That's two types that you should remember, query and mutation. And inside of query, you have what will be returned, what you can take. For example, you can take books. What it will return? It will return list, this thing is list, that cannot be null. Inside that will be book. And book, it will be an object. That object cannot be null. That's how it works. Books won't return you null. It will return you always list. And it will return you an object inside that list. And that object cannot contain null. So you can have just empty list. That's okay. But not null inside of that. That's crucial here. So with such things, you can just tell how your application will work. And that will help you just to manipulate with data. Take that and to work that. We'll check that out. Add book. That's the function that we'll create. So we're just telling that it will be in our application. We can say add books if you want a multiple of them. And we can create a specific function that will do it. We can do that a little bit later. But right now, we're just telling a plain text that we're telling to our application in specific way how it will look like. And we should make it really strong here. We don't need to change anything here. If we're adding book, we'll have a specific function that will add book. If we'll update that, the same, delete the same. And update book will take title. That cannot be null, it can be string. So sometimes you cannot just send that. It's okay. Some things can be options with question mark. But here, for example, we're telling that it cannot be null. It's important when we're adding our string, when we're adding our author. That's what we are doing. And it will return our book object. So the specific element that we are sending. So we're adding book and we'll return that. Sometimes you can update book and return, for example, a list of libraries inside which you'll have this book. Mostly of all, you won't do such things. So what you're updating, you will return that in 99% of situations. But sometimes it can be some unique situations that even I cannot think instantly. Then, update book. Update book will take ID. It will be important. Title it can be sent. It cannot be sent. So it can be null. So we can send null. Null means that it can be optional. It's such a way. Author, also the same, but will strictly send back our book. Then, delete book, we're taking only ID and we return our boolean. Maybe in such situations, you'll be returning just simple types. Boolean string, sometimes it can be, but to return a different object, that will be sometimes really different and really hard to remember such situations. So we'll just return boolean. That's how our application will look like. We're taking the data, it will be in books list, it can have list, it cannot tell you just books null, not. It will be definitely list, and list cannot contain null inside that. It will be always contains objects or nothing. That's okay. We have add, mutation, update, and delete. Okay, and what we also will have in our return. That's how it should work. It's just the concept. And here is the question. How it will work? How we can add our book? How we can update our book? Where it will take that? Why we have title, author, where we can write that? But if we want a specific logic, for example, if we're writing author and author is empty, so this book is a draft variant. That could be, and that can be automatically added when you're adding a book. Sometimes, so you wanted to just pass specific props when you're writing, when you're receiving specific information. And to write all that hard logic, resolvers, that's where you will stop. Server, it is basically in such way. Schema is just what you will have, like which objects you will have. You'll have nearly always types and mutations, and you're just telling how you want to receive your data. It's not so complicated, mostly of all it will be. But resolvers, that's where you'll stop. So, resolvers, they're based on models. Book. What is models and book? Let's go to there. That's our folder model, and model, it is the table that we're using to save our information. And if we're going here, it'll be extremely easy. So we'll just take our Mongoose, MongoDB. We're telling how does our MongoDB should understand specific value. It should understand book schema. So we'll have table, like in SQL, table, in this case, it calls model book, that contains book schema. And book schema, so inside of that model, we have a lot of different books, and these books can contain title and author. If we'll send something different from that, it will be just automatically not added. Or we can write here that some values can be important or not, and our MongoDB will return us. For example, if we wanted to make title important, I don't remember if I'm not mistaken, or in such way, we're just sending. Yeah, we can just write required to. Thanks, AI. Yeah, so it will mean if we won't write that, for example, in our GraphQL request, it will just hit us error, and that's all. That's what we'll have. We'll have error from our request. That's what you should keep in mind, that such schemas are helping us to work with our applications to automate such process. So here is really nothing hard. We have model with each book will have such specific. Okay, let's go further. We have resolvers, and resolvers, this is the thing. So we're taking this book. Firstly, what will have query? Query will return a book. So we'll take books, the method that will return, and in asynchronous, so we'll be waiting until all of the books will be taken. We're just using specific find method. Find method and all the methods that you see, they're based on our Mongoose here. So it is just MongoDB's methods. And if you're using SQL, you're using different from MongoDB, it can be just changed here. GraphQL is just such schema, such mutation, how it looks like add books, queries, books, but the specific methods, find, save, find by ID, it will depend on your specific database that you're using. Okay, so we're finding all of the books. Then, how we are adding books? This is what it is, just basic method that we'll take in. It's just how you should take your, you'll see. We're taking title and author. When we're adding, we're just creating new book with title and author. And so when we have title that is taking title, we can just make it easier just to write title. It will be easier and helper for us. And we're just saving that and returning this information. That what means here that we're having book. Okay, let's go further. Update. We're finding by ID and an update. So we're taking ID. And then this logic, well, what does it mean? It won't be changed. So if we won't give it, it will be undefined. And it means that we just won't write it here. And if we'll have title, it instantly won't be undefined. It will contain some data. And we'll send an object, like here, an object with title. And we'll add to this object, for example, author, if we have updated author, or not. And new, that means that we'll update our book. And if I'm not mistaken, we'll just have also a new updated book just right here. It will instantly, this updated will contain updated book. So we are not just editing that. will also returning a new book, because if you won't write it, this function will just return you an old variant of your book, but you just wanted to have a new variant. So firstly, in general, it will firstly send you a book and then update it. But when you provide new true, it will firstly update it and then return it. This is the logic. That's all. And book delete, we're just taking ID and we're finding by ID and delete specific book, and that's all. And if we have done that, we're just returning true or false. That's, once more time, what we have here. Okay, that's how it works. That's all. Remember, this schema is our MongoDB. This mutations query and the schema, how does it looks like? It is our GraphQL. But functions to save, edit, find things, it is our database, MongoDB in this variant. It can be SQL, so you can combine GraphQL with anything that you wanted to. Yeah, and our server is just easier to work to instantly define your types and resolvers. And with that, you just shouldn't create a specific application so you can check your GraphQL, because you can make it instantly here. You're just clicking query your server, so it's going to this Apollo GraphQL, and here we're instantly adding our localhost. And what you can check here, it is an example one, we won't go here, and we're going to root. You can see here, query and mutations. If we're going here, you can see that you have books that will return book. Okay, let's click on that. What it will return? It can return author, title, and this, the most important thing in GraphQL. You can return all of the data just by clicking here. Books, like we have no books, but you can return the specific. And to check that, let's create our application, like our book. We have book. It should have? Title and author. Okay, let's click on that. Let's add title and author, all of the values. And when we're clicking add, it instantly adds all of them because they're important. So what we'll provide? We'll provide title and we'll provide author, because sometimes it cannot understand what you want specifically to provide. And here we have variables. So variables, we can send, for example, title. That'd be GraphQL tutorial, and author will be Alex. And let's mutate it. And it returns us a book that we want to have. We have headers here, pre-operation scripts, post-operation scripts. You don't need to have that. You can figure that out later. Also, for example, we can return ID here because we're only returning these things, but we wanted to return ID. That's what we wanted to write to our application. Once more time, for example, the second version, mutate. Here we have ID. And we can create, for example, a query method that will find specific ID and write this one to you. But we don't have right now. What we can write also, we can make three things. We can, for example, write our GraphQL third one. We can add book, and we can also update book. We can just click on plus, and here we see that not only adding book, we're also updating that. And we can update, for example, we can write this ID, and we can provide here, for example, title, but this title will be title to update, for example. And here I can write comma and write, let's just write check. It's not property update book is not allowed. I think it will. Title to update. GraphQL tutorial. Okay, and we'll return, for example, let's return ID here. Title to update. One sec. We have, it's not defined impression. We're not. You find that in such a way. Okay, in such a way we'll have updated. So we'll have probably updated book title and edit book title in the same way. But okay, let it be in such a way. And also we want to, for example, instantly to return our books that we have. And let's return with author, only with authors. And do you know, like GraphQL is just post request. That's all. That's why we can make a lot of methods to run instantly. That's why we don't provide the specific content types and all such things, because all such requests are there standardized. And with MongoDB, like with GraphQL, you can instantly work how you wanted it to. So you're just clicking query, and that's what we have. Like we have two authors, and I didn't do something you were right, because I will have only right now querying. But if we'll delete that, you have seen that mutation was just disabled. And right now we see that we have one book added and another deleted and another updated. And we can click here, write titles, books titles. It will instantly generate a query that we need to. And that's what we have. We have two titles equals. And if we just need to write another variable, we can provide it, but I just didn't write it correct. So that's an idea of your GraphQL. You can take the specific fields that you need to, because GraphQL was created by Facebook, and Facebook has a lot of information for you. And if they need just in a search bar just to have your name and your profile photo, they don't need to have, for example, your information about education, your information where you're living. They just need to take the specific values. And that's how it works. So when you have, for example, a table with a lot of parameters, and sometimes you're searching, sometimes you're adding the specific ones that you don't need to take all of them, GraphQL, this is the way to go. Because if you will take a lot of information and a lot of columns that you don't need, you're just making your server to be working worse, because you're just taking unnecessary information. That's the thing. And GraphQL helps you to, firstly, to make instantly some requests, add, update, delete, a couple of things, not only one. And then get, you can take specific field and you can combine them. You can have two specific objects to return, and it's easier to operate. And the most important thing, it is Schema here, and you can check what is important, what is not, where you can add your information, where it's not. And sometimes even you don't need to write, sometimes even your admin panel to control, to add some users, you can use such GraphQL, and you can work with your colleagues and tell that, okay, well, let's use GraphQL. And if they know a little bit of GraphQL, it's just a simple schema that can be also done with a table, and maybe sometimes it will be easier for them to understand. It can be downloaded in CSV and JSON, and if it will be easier for them, they can work in such way. And they don't need even to write any of such things. They just need to write variables, know what they wanted to take, and that will help you not to write your admin panel, and it will save a huge time for you. And that's how it works. Thanks everyone for watching. Hope now you understand how to work with GraphQL, with Apollo Server, with .env library, and with your MongoDB, and why you should combine that, in which situations you should use it, and how to use it. How to use it fast and easy. That's the main thing. Programming should be fast and easy. You should create new things, not to make bicycles once more time, and not to make complicated coding for you, because it will stop innovations. That's why we're making you new libraries to creating things faster and easier. This is the goal. Thanks for watching. See you in next videos. Bye.